Welcome to the podcast of MotorWeek, television's original automotive magazine. MotorWeek is made possible by TireRack.com and by RockAuto.com. Here's your MotorWeek podcast host, John Davis.
Thank you, Alec Webb, and welcome everyone to MotorWeek podcast number 133. I am, of course, John Davis, and joining me around our table today, writer-producer Brian Robinson.
Hello, John.
Our assistant producer, Greg Carlos.
Hey, hey.
And our writer, Patrick Lucas.
Hello there.
And we've got a lot to get to today, including a lightning round, a viewer question. Maybe we'll have some rant and raves. But first, vehicles that have come upon our lot recently, or we've had time to spend behind the wheel. 2016 Volvo S60. There's two of them we're going to talk about. We'll also hit on the new Toyota RAV4 and a Jaguar XF with a little something special. Let's start with the folks from Sweden, Volvo. And kind of a renaissance, guys, with the XC90 basically impressing us so much, and the new 90 sedan having just been unveiled. But this is kind of a retread in a way, the Volvo S60 cross country. And then there's the new long wheelbase model, the Inscription. So who wants to start? What do we think? Are these cars too long in the tooth to be competitive, or what?
I wouldn't say that. They certainly made some good updates. It's actually two different cars, even though they're both S60s. The cross-country is still built in Europe, and it's got the old 2.5-liter inline-5 turbo. The Inscription...
An engine I had many years ago in the last Volvo I owned.
The Inscription long wheelbase is actually made in China. And
that includes the engine, right?
Correct. Same engine that's in the XC90 crossover, but just turbocharged here, not supercharged. So, it's almost like two different vehicles.
Yeah, here we are. This is the first, the Inscription is the first over-the-road, made-in-China car sold in the United States. And I don't think a few years ago anybody would have guessed that, a Volvo would take that honor.
I think you predicted it, didn't you?
I did, but that was after that was when I heard that as soon as Volvo got purchased by the Chinese, I thought that would happen, and I actually thought, though, it would probably be the compact. I didn't know it would be a bread and butter car. But this is kind of a special model, just that they're doing this for the Chinese that like to be chauffeured around, right?
I'm not so sure about that. It's not that much room back there.
Bigger.
Yeah, it's more just a decent amount of room for families, I think.
It's an interesting car. Any comments? This is the first time we've seen the cross-country moniker put on a sedan. I mean, a la Subaru in a way. Mm-hmm. I think they're probably smart to do that. They probably missed out a little bit of the market.
Yeah, I think there's certainly some people who would cross-shop maybe the Crosstrek with Subaru, like you had just mentioned. Mm. Yeah, I did like the cross-country. I mean, I actually spent most of my time in that one. I didn't get a lot of time in the Inscription. But, I dug it. It was... After getting out of the XC90, you're almost like jumping back in time now in the old Volvo.
Really? Yeah,
so, I tried not to hold that against it, but it's still, comfortable seats. It's a pleasure to drive. I couldn't really find too many things I didn't like about it. It's the cross country. You're not going to go any serious off-roading, but if you're off the beaten path and maybe you've got a house up on the hill and you don't necessarily have paved roads up there, it'll certainly get there for you.
I agree. It definitely feels dated getting out of the XC90, but I thought it was a nice, punchy engine. It was actually kind of fun to drive. It was a lot more spirited than I thought it was going to be. Like the Crosstrek, the Subaru. I don't see a whole lot of actual off-road utility, but it's got a little extra space. It's jacked up a little bit. I thought it was cool.
I've actually taken that particular powertrain with that Haldex all-wheel drive system in earlier models of some amazingly steep and muddy terrain. Right. Frankly, for a non-off-road vehicle, it's pretty darn impressive. And I don't think most people, since most people don't really ever go off-road anyway, probably need anything more. And it's got a decent amount of ground clearance, and certainly not up to SUV standards, but not bad.
Yeah, I'm sure it's mainly going to be marketed towards all-weather capabilities more than off-roading, but
I'm not so sure you can't sell easily a premium sedan in the Northeast anyway that doesn't have all-wheel drive. So it's a good move for them. And we wish them well. And as we say in the road test, we can't wait for the all-new S60. That can't be too far down the line, maybe a year or two. Okay, let's move on to another retread. It's a bad word, but I'll use it anyway. Toyota RAV4 has been freshened for 2016, and there's a new edition. Enough. They've sort of been left in the dust by some of their competition.
Yeah, I mean, it's better in that it offers more variety. There's a hybrid now. First time a RAV4 has been a hybrid, which is a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
And it's also enticing in the way that it's also the most powerful and efficient RAV4 you can get. The gas models don't have as much horsepower or efficiency. And even it's actually only like $700, I think, for as a premium of a similar spec RAV4 gas. So going up to the hybrid's only about $700, which isn't that big of a deal, I think, if you're really eco-minded. There's also a new SE grade, so if you want to stay away from hybrid and you want to go sporty, that's a completely different trim level now. It's upgraded suspension. I think they tuned some shocks and some springs. It looks way more sporty. I think it has some specific wheels, and that's across the whole lineup. The whole lineup of RAV4 looks better.
Now, let me stop you in a second. The RAV4 hybrid, this is an all-wheel drive vehicle with an electric motor in the back, right?
Correct. It's like the Highlander. Yeah. All hybrids will be it. It's all-wheel drive with intelligence, as they call it. So there is no, like you said, connection between. There's no mechanical connection between the front wheels and the rear wheels.
I think this is the trend of the future.
Yeah, it's more efficient. One of their engineers was talking about in many terms that I couldn't even understand. But what it really equates to is just more efficiency, and it's just much quicker to react. So yeah, like you said, it probably is the way of the future now.
Is that a lighter system, putting the electric motors on the front and rear as opposed to linking them and having a...
It's certainly mechanically probably less complex,
sure.
but I imagine it is lighter. I mean, you're getting away with a whole lot less metal hardware.
Right.
It's I guess it's very rare now for companies to be going heavier. Everything's lighter.
Yeah, wiring is much lighter than
steel
metal parts. Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's. I think I was comparing it to. We had that long term 2013, I think, maybe a year or two ago, and they definitely refined some things. It's quieter inside because it was really loud, the old one, and everything just rides a little bit better. It's more comfortable inside. I think they upgraded a few materials, so it's definitely a more premium feeling RAV4 at this point.
I think there's an untapped market for hybrid all-wheel drive SUVs, especially when you talk about a small premium, because even the most efficient ones that we get in here, they have a hard time of doing much more than 26, 27 miles per gallon, and most usually it's 3 or 4 miles per gallon below that in normal everyday use.
Well, yeah, we were just talking about the Crosstrek when we were talking about the Volvos. The Crosstrek hybrid.
Right.
Is probably the only real competition to the RAV4 hybrid.
Correct.
So I think RAV4 hybrid will probably sell a lot because there's not many alternatives.
Yeah, I mean, gas is under $2 a gallon. That's certainly going to help it, but that may not last forever. And anytime that if the experts say, "Hey, we're going to have cheap gas for 4 or 5 years," you can pretty much bet they're going to be wrong at some point.
Well, it just went up 10 cents today.
There you go.
Another quick thing was the. They have a new camera. They have like a available bird's eye camera.
So it's like a 360?
Yeah, but it takes it to the next level. It's they call it perimeter scan, where you can actually touch the screen and interact with different areas you want to see.
Does it blow it up?
It's pretty wild. Yeah, I wouldn't say it blows it up, but it just focuses in on one specific area. So if you're worried about your right front end, you can point there, and it'll take you to that camera. It's actually pretty well stitched together.
Does it have cool sound effects when you do it?
Unfortunately, no. You got to make them yourself.
Not a problem.
Speaking of sound effects, I think we all agree that the Jaguar XF is a great sounding car, but now basically they've taken that to the next level. There's a new Jaguar XF. Brian Robinson, what's changed about it?
You'd have to ask Greg. I haven't really spent much time with it.
Yeah, but you know all about it. Spit it out.
You're a smart
guy.
Everything.
Come on, you know everything. We all listen. Don't we all listen and stop and listen when he talks?
Every time I
except right now.
He's the authority that I go to.
It's just Jaguar's continued efforts to get everything on aluminum chassis and refresh everything and put supercharged V6s in everything.
Yeah, trying to make everything like an F-Type. Same front suspension as the F-Type, integral link rear. Like Brian had said, 75% aluminum. Everything's lighter. Everything's stiffer. As far as
this is an all-new car.
it is,
Right.
it doesn't look it on the outside. I think that's what throws
kind of
people.
what I meant.
But
It's
it
like,
really is.
Most people, I haven't seen it in person, but the pictures say, "Is that really new?"
Yeah, it is all new. They've got all-wheel drive will still be available, like we had mentioned. Those northeastern states are going to want all-wheel drive. It's still here. It's just a chain-driven unit now, so that's new. New powers. It's not. New electric power steering, which, believe it or not, actually feels pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
I was not expecting it. It's pretty shockingly good.
Has more feel than
More
most of
feel
them.
than most of them. Let's see what else is new.
You were impressed, as I recall, with the interior as well.
Definitely.
The materials that seem every bit.
The XF, I guess they tried to appeal to more people with the previous one, and I think the interior kind of cut some corners in terms of quality and things like that. So this one definitely stepped it up. It's more in line with like an XJ. Everything feels good. It looks good. There's tons of new technology. There's going to be a new infotainment system available next year, I believe, it's a completely digital gauge cluster, which will actually turn into a full screen, kind of like Audi.
I like
where
Audi,
you can get a
yeah.
reverse or a backup camera.
Or the map.
Yep. So heads-up display and everything that's new, and there will be a diesel coming the middle of next year.
How about all-wheel drive?
Yeah, all-wheel drive is all going to be there. So, yeah, I got to say it was pretty impressive.
Did it feel like a luxury car?
Yeah, it's definitely there. Like in a sporty luxury car, it definitely updated its. Like I said, they updated its suspension and steering. Feels really dialed in, and I think it's definitely deserving of that new Jaguar kind of moniker now, where it's sporty, sophisticated, luxurious. It really is all those things.
Now, I got to ask Patrick something. Patrick is an Audi owner. Do you think a German car owner or Audi owner would ever be swayed to buy a British sedan?
I can't speak for everyone, but
speak for
but I will.
You can.
But I
You can
will.
speak for every Audi owner.
I was certainly intrigued by them, especially. I guess we probably had one within the past couple of years, haven't we? And
Sure.
XF.
yeah, and I wanted to like it, but it didn't feel premium, especially on the inside, as we were just talking about. But yeah, I'm very intrigued by it. I like their design. I like the more they put those features from the F-Type, those aggressive features, like the lighting and stuff like that, and the sharp angles. They're working that into other stuff. I have an A4, which is pretty basic looking sedan, but it's got that edge that I like, and so the XF I think is getting there, and I'm definitely intrigued, and I think a lot of people should be, especially if they actually drive it. I think they'd be pleasantly surprised.
I don't know the typical Audi buyer is lacking in anything to go looking for anything else, but I think they would lean more towards that than like a CTS or certainly anything American.
Staying within the European continent. Well, it's great to see Jaguar and Volvo, for that matter, doing such a renaissance with their vehicles. Okay, now let's move on to our lightning round. Our panelists have 2 minutes to debate trending automotive topics. When time is up, they're going to hear the bell.
We got it today.
We actually have the real bell back. Okay, with the Consumer Electronics Show just having wrapped up in Las Vegas, the trend of automakers is that automakers are increasing their presence every year. There's more and more automotive news coming out of it. Okay, group, do we see a vehicle's technology ever becoming the primary selling point as capabilities and connectivity move forward? Is it always kind of be just a secondary thing to things like horsepower and cargo room and styling? Where do we stand? There are some surveys that actually say technology is already there. But as consumers yourself, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't know who comes up with these questions, but I think we're past that point already. Everyone, whenever anybody asks about a car, they want to know what gadgets it has, what features, what it does that other cars don't do. I don't hear anybody anymore really asking about cargo room, horsepower, or tow rating.
Do you think that's
unless you're buying a truck?
Are you speaking for people who are now in their 50s and 60s? You think they've actually shifted their attention? Because are you talking about the new people who are buying
like
cars?
me have not shifted it. I don't think.
What about all these?
Styling is still number one,
Yeah.
and then people get into what features does it have. Then they look at what the capabilities.
What
are.
about all these shootouts that you do with Cars.com and all that? That technology is a big thing for them.
For sure. And I think the biggest thing we try to look at is not necessarily the technology that it has, but we grade it on the ease of use of it. I mean, a lot of technology is cool, but if it's frustrating every time you get in a car, then it's
right.
not
I'm
cool.
saying, but I'm saying, like, do you think you ever get to a point where, like, the fact that your phone would seamlessly integrate with your car, that would be more of a selling point, or like having that would cause people to overlook some drawbacks of the car, like, oh, it's not very good on gas, or it doesn't have a lot of room.
Well, I think we're at that point now. People still buy styling over cargo capacity. They'll buy a vehicle and say, well, it doesn't have as much room as this car, but it sure looks great. Okay. I think it's the same way with technology.
I want to ask you all a question for opinion. Now, at CES this year, much was said about the fact that Apple and Google are fast getting their phones fully integrated with cars through CarPlay and whatever the other one is,
Android Auto.
Android Auto. And that's one group. A lot of manufacturers are putting those systems in so that you can get basically the same faces on the phone up on the dashboard. And then you have Ford and Toyota saying, wait a minute, we'll probably do that, but we want to keep control of it. Who's going to win here? Do you think, in your personal opinion, that the systems that are directly related to the phones that allow total integration will end in the end, or do you think the car makers are going to somehow be able to keep some of that ownership of capabilities themselves?
Google and Apple are going to win, because look how constantly, like, manufacturers, when they try to do it themselves, have to change things or address things because people don't like it, or they get something wrong, or it's outdated in a year.
It's not their specialty.
Right.
Not to mention, eventually they're going to realize, hey, why are we putting all of our R&D money into this when we can just let them do the R&D and we make it work in our cars?
Any comment?
I'm in agreement. I think they do it better.
I think it's unanimous. When I read all the articles about what was being done, it's not that they don't want the systems to work, but they don't want them to be overpower everything else, because it gives up a lot of revenue-making opportunities. But I personally agree. I think the Apple and Google are going to win. Okay, you heard the bell. That means we've got to move on, and we're going to move on to a viewer question from Dave. Excuse me, Dave. I was all choked up over your question. I was lucky enough to buy a 2015 Dodge Challenger Scat Pack this year, but only plan on driving it once or twice a month during our Midwest winters. I don't even think I drive it that often. Do I need to add a fuel stabilizer during the winter months, even though I drive the car once or twice a month during the winter? Any comments?
Better option would be just have me drive it when you're not driving it.
Ship it out here.
We'll take delivery of it.
Well, it's probably not necessary, but it wouldn't be a bad idea with all the ethanol and gas these days. Fuel stabilizer is cheap enough.
You'll probably find it harder to get it out that one or two times a month and maybe end up forgetting about it. So to be safe, probably just throw it in there.
Patrick, any experience with fuel stabilizer?
I do not, but this is a relevant question because my Audi sits in the parking lot out there, and I don't drive it very often. And it's getting very cold.
Let me bark in here. I use Stable. I have a car, two cars that basically sit a lot during the winter. I put Stable in them, or I put another product called Seafoam, which I like a lot. And there's also a third product which a lot of performance, like Ferrari owners, like to use, and it's from Lucas of all people. It's called Lucas Fuel Stabilizer. I think it's a cheap investment. Another thing is, and I don't know what kind of gas this car runs on, whether it's premium or regular, but
premium, I'm sure.
I've always been told that premium has a little bit less alcohol content for an additive than regular. So you should put premium in it also, so you've got less of a problem. That's what I've been told. But I think, Dave, it's a cheap way to basically protect the car. You should put the fuel stabilizer in it, run it around a little bit so it mixes, and make sure a little of it runs through the engine before you shut it off. But it sounds like you'll be doing that anyway. All right, our last thing that we're going to talk about this particular podcast are rant and raves. We're all back from Christmas and holiday vacation. Anything pop up during that period that you want to talk about? Is everybody just so calm, cool, and collected?
You never have anything. You gotta have. I know you're just sitting over there steaming.
You should know me better.
People without beards are like, what is it?
I don't rant or rave about anything. So,
John, is there anything that irritates you?
In general, or
it has something to do all these with cars.
I got nothing, but maybe next time I'll come up with one.
didn't spend as much time on the highways this holiday season as I have in the past. And actually, I thought that a lot of drivers were driving a little more sanely. Maybe it was just the holiday spirit. But I am still blown away by the number of people that will pass you only to turn off in the next, turn off to the left, to the right rather, in front of you after 500 feet. It's like they can't wait for you to get there, and you're only going to be a few seconds. And they do it consistently, which I consider a really, really
Not only that,
sorry
but
about that. That was probably
that was you, right?
had an emergency of some sort. Not only that, but they'll like get around you and then not even give you enough space when they get back in front of you.
Oh, that brings up another one. The car that will be sort of pacing you from behind on the interstate, and they eventually ease up and they sit forever in your blind spot, and then they come around and get in front of you, and then they slow down.
Yep.
It's because you got to text somebody.
I was driving with my girlfriend, and we were going up to a toll booth, of all places.
Yeah.
An easy pass. So, you can breeze through there at like 10 miles an hour. Right as we're probably about 500 feet from the toll booth, we're getting ready to go, and somebody cuts in front of her, goes through, and then as soon as they get through and pay their toll, they just stop.
Oh.
In the middle of the toll booth. So we're just sitting there like... Apparently you were in a hurry and then decided that you're done. You're done driving right at the toll booth.
Don't rush me.
Exactly. And I don't know what she's doing, but maybe the holidays have people in a frenzy.
I'm not sure enough people worry about getting hit from the rear. I mean, I guess they're saying, well, you hit me from the rear, it's your fault.
Yeah,
but the point is, the amount of physical damage that can be done to you from getting hit from the rear, and if you cause it, it's just not worth it, no matter what you do.
It's like an out-of-sight, out-of-mind thing or something.
I guess.
It's a lack of awareness. Is what
A lack of awareness.
We need more awareness.
Well, I guess that's pretty lightweight rant and raves, but that's a good way to start the new year.
We'll have better stuff
We have
next
plenty
time.
of time to build
2016
up.
just started.
I'll think about it.
All right, I'd like to thank everybody around the table today for participating in our podcast. Our writer-producer, Brian Robinson, our assistant producer, Greg Carlos, our writer, Patrick Lucas. By the way, our next podcast will talk about everything that's new at the 2016 North American International Auto Show in Detroit.
Yeah.
So that'll be coming up in a week or so. I want to thank our audio engineer, Jim Bigwood, our podcast creator, Bob Mixter, and the guy with the bell, podcast producer, Patrick Lucas.
Beautifully done.
I hope you'll join us next time, and I hope you'll catch MotorWeek on public television stations all across the country, as well as on the Velocity Cable Network. If you want dates and times, please go to our website, motorweek.org. Until next time, I'm John Davis. For all of us at MotorWeek, Happy New Year, and we'll see you down the road.
You have been listening to the podcast of MotorWeek, television's original automotive magazine. MotorWeek is made possible by TireRack.com and by RockAuto.com. For additional information on podcasts, videos, and showtimes, visit our website at MotorWeek.org. And watch MotorWeek, television's longest-running automotive magazine series, each week on your local PBS station.